Okay, we're going to get started with Finance Committee. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm calling the Finance Committee meeting to order, please. We'll try to go quickly. David, are there any public speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 6 public speakers. The first speaker is Jason Pinero, followed by Matt Kemper.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Bob. I'm going to be very brief. I'm going to talk about the Fair Vision issue. It is still going on. The agency is estimated to lose $260 million this year alone. Money that we cannot afford to keep losing. So, Bob, let's come with a recipe, something like that, or ways that we as an agency be creative, thinking outside the box to get revenue without cutting 2,000 jobs like the Alex Partners report suggests, and not impacting service cuts. And I'm going to raise on the minute that I have a question regarding the Alex Partners and Lisa Donahue. Why Lisa Donahue? Because she was behind the restructure of the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority. We don't want to make the same mistake that they did down there in Puerto Rico, that they ended granting her $16 million of contract. So I want you, Larry, and Bob, that commit yourselves to do a lot of thinking, go back into history, and we don't want to give Alex Partners $16 million. So that's your homework for this month.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matt Kemper, followed by Murray Bowden.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance Committee. My name is Matt Kemper, and I am a advocate for the MTA and also a LIRR rider. I want to talk to you guys about a couple of things this afternoon. And first thing, if you don't know, back in 2011, the MTA, of course, had MTA Long Island Bus. Now, why am I bringing up MTA Long Island Bus here? It's because it was taken over by an entity called Transdev, and is, of course, now the owner of Nice Bus. Nice Bus has really gone downhill. The service, the maintenance, even the drivers. They hire drivers, it doesn't matter, from dollar van companies. They hire drivers, it doesn't matter where. They basically hire anyone. And I understand the MTA back then did was, they even have, the MTA basically has, when it comes to drivers, make sure they have the background and everything. And the maintenance has just gone downhill, the routes, and it's a third, the ridership is a third of what it was back then. And I used to take it. I really used to take it, and I'm just fed up with it. And I really think you guys, as an agency, really talk with Nassau County and try to get a way to get Nice Bus to come back to the MTA, because it's just gone significantly downhill with the maintenance and everything. I think you guys would do a lot better job than what Transdev is doing. And one more quick thing I'll mention is, I don't understand, when there's a planned outage on the LIRR or an unplanned, why can't you guys talk with Suffolk County Transit and Nassau County to have cross-arm effect, so people don't have to pay $2.75 more or whatever it is for Suffolk County just to have to take the bus, and give them service options. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Murray Bowden, who will be followed by Bradley Brashears.
Can't see over. Larry, thank you. I spent 2 days preparing for this meeting, and you just turned the whole thing upside down 10 minutes ago. The reason there was traffic on the bridge when you care and it took you 2 hours to get home, one very simple reason. Nobody makes them follow the rules. That's all it is. They're in their own world. They don't communicate. Nobody makes them follow the rules, and you wait. There was absolutely no reason. There could have been coordination. They know how to do it, but they don't, because you all let them get away with it. It's somebody's fault. Sarah, if I may interrupt, I love the way you speak, but you have to speak closer to the microphone and speak up. We just can't hear you, even with that new technology.
I love the feedback.
What?
Said I love the feedback. Thank you.
You're welcome. I spent 2 days preparing for this whole thing and read everything and everything else, and Larry put his finger on it. Nobody, I got to follow the rules. They don't have to follow the rules. I'm here because every time I come, I learn something new. And the other part is my friends are dying. I don't have a lot of them left. And as good as I look, I'm not. I fell down the other day trying to put my pants on. Time's going on, people. It's your responsibility to take care of the environment for my grandchildren and yours.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bradley Brashears, followed by Andrew Pollack.
Hello, good afternoon, board members. My name is Bradley Brashears, and I'm the planning manager of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. Today, I'm here to speak about the MTA's transformation plan as it relates to staff retention and productivity. Staff retention at the MTA is already a problem and will be made worse by the headcount reduction proposed in the reorganization plan, which may or may not already have been included in the numbers being bandied about. We have seen over the last few years how the loss of key staff is playing out, and it's not pretty. Too often, it's the best people in critical positions who leave. As more senior staff are retiring and younger staff are leaving for greener pastures after just a few years, there is and will be a negative impact on riders. The 2010 cuts, followed by the constant whiplash from leadership change, has made staff retention that much harder. When Governor Cuomo hired 3 extremely strong agency leaders and the visioning plan set out by all 3 were in place, there was hope the whiplash would stop. But here we are. The infrastructure and operation of our vast system requires informed and knowledgeable staff. Attrition has severe and unattended consequences. Needed positions do not get filled, institutional knowledge gets lost, and important positions focusing on accountability are no longer to be found. A full and transparent understanding of the hiring freeze, attrition, and retirements by departments and management levels should be fully understood and done quickly to help determine whether cutting your way out of the growing deficit is the best way to go. It is possible that with the dream team the governor brought on, Kathy Rinaldi, Andy Byford, Phil Ing, Jano Lieber, and Pat Foy, there is another way to go. A thoughtful restructuring that will reduce the MTA's deficit through improved reliability, ridership growth, more fair flexibility, congestion pricing, value capture, and more. The Alex Partners plan is unfortunately a rushed response to institutional problems that have taken years to develop. A strong commitment to retaining and developing talent is crucial to maintaining productivity, which has direct impacts on the riders our organization represents. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Andrew Pollack.
Good afternoon. Before I talk about finance, I quickly want to mention a bus detour on the Q30, Q31. Recently, in the past month, it has been detoured along Jamaica Avenue because of DOT road work along Archer Avenue. This is a major inconvenience for students who go to York College, especially when classes will start on August 27th. Hopefully, President Byford can look into getting the original route back along Archer Avenue. Now my point about finance. Last month, I was pleased to hear that Long Island Railroad President Philip Bang announced the extension of the Atlantic ticket. This is great, because this board finally realizes the importance of travel between Brooklyn and Queens, especially how Brooklyn has lots of opportunities in the job field and especially in the leisure field. But now I feel it's time to expand on that and bring the Freedom Ticket, which will be similar to what Atlantic Ticket is. $5, of course, $10 for a round trip, which will be between Queens and Manhattan, which of course is Penn Station. And it will be the same $60 monthly ticket that's currently offered between Atlantic and the qualifying stations in Queens. With that, I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the speakers.
Okay, just quickly before we begin the agenda, just one comment I just want to make. this board has received a number of pieces of correspondence from Governor Cuomo, and one of those pieces of correspondence had been him calling on the MTA to put together a homeless plan. And I know that staff is working on that. Bob, one of the things that I will call on Pat to do as part of this plan that the board needs to review and approve, and I ask you to participate in the development of that plan because there's a fiscal piece to that plan is, one is I'd really like to see if anybody knows what percentage of the homeless that we find in our subway stations and on our trains are homeless veterans versus non-homeless veterans. Two is, I want to look, and I love the NYPD. I love our police. They do a great job in protecting us. But the bottom line is we don't have enough law enforcement in our subway stations and on our trains. I walk through Grand Central every day, and I take the 4, 5, and 6 every day when I'm not traveling out of state for my paid job versus my volunteer job that we're doing now. And the amount of panhandling that it's going on, at least on the 4, 5, 6, I assume it's many other lines, has gone up significantly. And, for a lot of people, and I look at the people that are on these on the trains when the panhandling is happening, it becomes very intimidating for a lot of people. People become very uncomfortable, and the panhandling comes in all shapes and sizes in terms of how aggressive some of those homeless individuals are, and we need to address it. It's part of the quality of life. It's part of people's feeling that they want to be safe when they take the subway system. And I guarantee you, and I'm going to work closely with Commissioner Feinberg, who chairs New York City Transit, I'm sure the statistics will pan out on fare evasion, that when you have uniformed officers there versus something else, you'll see a significant difference in the drop in fare evasion. Well, we need to have more law enforcement, and if the NYPD can't find the manpower and resources to get more officers on the trains as well as in the stations, then we have to figure out a way in the next budget to finance more Metro North police and put them on the trains, or state police, or somebody on there. And I think you're not talking about 25 or 50. You're talking about hundreds, like 300. So we'll work with you to price this out. But this is a big problem, and it's an important issue. And that's the same reason why I want to know how many homeless veterans there are. I will also tell you, and I'll ask Managing Director Hakam, we spend tens of millions of dollars in contracting out for homeless services. I'm not here to criticize any of these agencies. My concern is, and I've voiced it before, that when I see the staff, which I don't see that often until somebody raises the issue, these are very young people. I have questions about how much training these individuals get, and their ability to convince homeless people to get help and get services. I don't know why we're not reaching out, or whether we do reach out to veteran organizations to help us maybe reach out, identify those homeless veterans to try to get them help and get them off the trains and out of our subway stations. So this is an ongoing thing, and maybe one of the things that could help law enforcement too is create like a texting number where when people see homeless people, and this is to help them, not to hurt them, whether they're on a train or sleeping in a station or panhandling in a station, that people can text the number to law enforcement and they can go check it out and see if they, with the right people, talk to them and get them the assistance or help that they needed. But the problem is not going away. The problem is only getting worse, and we need to address it now, and it needs to be addressed if necessary in the budget. And if that includes hiring people and more cops, more law enforcement people, then we should include that in the budget, and we should find the money for it, as we have to find money for other things. So I just want to put that on the record today, because we're not meeting in August, and then the draft budget's going to come out in the fall, and we need to work on this now, and it needs to be included and incorporated into the homeless plan that's being developed by Pat and staff. So with that, I'd like to get the approval of the June 24th minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Second? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's approved. David, please take us through the work plan.
Thank you. There are two changes to the work plan. First, the quarterly capital change order report is no longer required to be provided due to the language in the staff summary for all agency general contract procurement guidelines and all agency service procurement guidelines that were approved by the board at the June meeting. And second, the agency reports on fair evasion have been added monthly to the work plan. There is no budget watch presentation in July due to the release of the July financial plan. CFO Bob Foran will be presenting the July financial plan at the joint special session of Finance and the full board on Wednesday. Finance is next and can be found in section 5 on page 30, and Pat McCoy will take us through it.
Thank you. We just have a couple transactions to report here in Finance Watch. The first is that we successfully closed the $300 million MTA transportation revenue ban in July. That was priced through a competitive sale on July 9th, and you can see in Finance Watch the winning firms that took parts of the notes. The TIC on that issue was 1.492%. For upcoming transactions, we have $600 million that we'll be issuing here, pricing approximately around the 7th of August, and we'll have two different closings on the two components you see here. $500 million transportation revenue green bonds 2019C will pay off an existing ban that's coming due on August 15th. And $100 million of currently callable bonds that will be callable on or after August 15th. And we're expecting to issue both of those as one transaction in two different subseries through a competitive method of sale. And I'll report on those at the September meeting. Lastly, on June 25th, we bid out a diesel fuel hedge, 2.8 million gallons of ULSD through a competitive bid, and that was won by Goldman Sachs J. Aaron at an all-in price of $1.92 a gallon. And that concludes Finance Watch.
Next are the agency reports on fair evasion, which start on page 40 of the Finance Committee book. Agency representatives are here to take any questions.
I don't see any agency representatives. Are they here?
Yeah, they're right behind me.
Oh. Do we have any month-to-month? Where are we on fair evasion? Do you know?
Yeah, the data's in the book for subway fare evasion. For 2019, May year-to-date was at 4%, which is an increase over the 3.9% for the first quarter. For bus fare evasion, the rate May year-to-date was 23.9%, a more significant increase over the first quarter number of 22.6%.
So let me ask you this. It's now July. Can you tell me, in terms of if we continue the trend that we've been on for the nearly first 6 months of 2019, can you project to me what the loss in fare evasion will be for calendar year 2019 versus what it was for calendar year 2018?
We don't have a projection for the year, for the end of the year. We can certainly put that together. But just based on the last 12 months through May, we're over $260 million a year in total for fare evasion, subway and bus, of the estimated loss.
So, when we got our first fare evasion briefing in December of 2018, we were looking at $220 million losses in fare evasion. And the reason why we had this briefing on fare evasion, because there was a lot of talk during 2018 about a decrease in ridership. which I think a lot of board members were skeptical of, based on just their own experience being on the subway trains. That's why we asked for the briefing. And obviously, it's not a decrease in ridership, it's a huge increase in fare evasion. So I understand we're trying new things. I understand we're just in the early stages of trying new things. But this is a crisis. This is a huge, huge problem. And I'd say to my colleague to my left that, we need to all work together to get this under control, because we can't afford this. And that's why also, when I raise the issue of more police, my attitude is having 300 more police patrolling would probably more than pay for itself in terms of the loss in fare evasion that's going on. Plus, they could provide a lot of other valuable services from a public safety standpoint. So we got to address this as if it was a crisis, because losing $260 million or more in terms of fare evasion is not sustainable when we're looking at future budget deficits. So,
Understood.
Yeah, I might just add to that if I may, Chair.
just defer to Commissioner Feinberg for a second, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
President
I
Byford.
apologize.
That's okay. One thing I was going to say, I completely agree with everything you just said. Two sort of anecdotes. One, we didn't get to this in the Transit Committee meeting, both because we were running behind and also because Mr. Deal just didn't reference it. But we have some anecdotal evidence that, we took a couple of stations where we had cameras and we watched footage without police in the station, and then watched footage later of police in the station. And there are folks here who will show you the numbers and run through the numbers, but they were stark. But where prior to the police being in the station, there being a police presence near the turnstiles, 22 instances of fare evasion, 26 instances of fare evasion, 29 instances. And then with police at the turnstiles, 0, 0, and 1, or 0, 1, and 4, or something. So it's clear, and no one's surprised by this, it's clear that a law enforcement presence makes a big difference. We also know that we don't have enough police officers and that they're expensive. And so one thing I asked the team to look at on the homeless proposition is whether uniformed security personnel might be useful as well. And I think we should take a look at what kind of impact that has compared to uniformed police and see if that makes a difference too. You and I are of the same view that law enforcement and that cameras matter the most in these instances, and so we have to continue making progress on that. But I agree, when you uptick on the personnel, you end up saving on the fare evasion side.
Shalin?
I certainly would be interested in much more granular analysis to help us think about this. There's certainly a difference between what may be happening on Metro North versus what's happening on buses versus what's happening at transit. If, as I understood anecdotally, that a number of the fare evaders can be, maybe as much as half, can be students who actually have passes, and the fact of stopping the fare evasion doesn't necessarily save us any money. So I'm not suggesting that this is insignificant, far from it, but I do think that we need to know as much as possible. The whole concept of centralizing and reorganizing is having a central database for what we're looking at. And it would be interesting from time of day, location, which facility, and what it is that we think we're losing. And I think that we ought to focus specifically, so I don't know whether the number is 300 or a different number or where those 300 should be located, but it seems to me it is through data and data analysis that we ought to have an informed judgment of how to use our resources.
I don't disagree, and I believe that information is out there and available, whether it's through Long Island Railroad, Metro North, or New York City Transit. I think, though, we don't have enough law enforcement resources out there, and like I said, I want to reach out to NYPD to see if they can provide more resources, but if they can't, because they have other priorities and other issues out there, then we need to take care of it on our own. And whether it's Metro North Police, whether it's MTA Police or state police or private security, we need to figure out a solution. We have to have a greater presence. So, Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, I guess I've made a pest of myself on this issue. When I was given the report in 2016, there were well over 100,000 stops, 30,000 arrests. 93 to 95% were blacks and Latinos. I'm worried that what we hear is a sharp increase in fare evasion on buses. I don't think there's been an arrest in Staten Island. I probably am wrong about that. But when I asked this question of the then police brass, I was told, do you distribute your efforts system-wide? And I was told, no, we go where the crime is, and you know where that is. I'm very worried, and I've been pressing on this, that as you do this, and I'm for it, I want to make sure we understand where the real crisis is, and it turns out in buses, and not suddenly immediately switch, and this is all a matter of black and Latino youth jumping over turnstiles. Because these interactions do not always turn out well, certainly not for the police officer, but certainly in impacts that are unforeseen. So we've seen a sharp increase in the number of tab summonses. It's jumped up, and I don't know the racial demographics of that. I wouldn't be surprised if it tracks the same numbers again. And I haven't gotten a sense that we're providing equal opportunity across this system and actually going where the sharp increases in fare evasion actually are. It's very dangerous in a way. We've been through a whole issue of policing that tends to target certain communities more than others. So I just urge you to be very careful as you go. I do not want major confrontations between police and young people that lead to unforeseen consequences that we'll all regret.
I do agree with you, Commissioner Jones, and I know you've been a very vocal advocate on this, and I think all the board members agree that we should be targeting where the problem is, not targeting individuals. And clearly the problem has been more pervasive on our New York City buses than it is subways. So I'm not here to, I just think that we need a greater law enforcement presence for a whole host of reasons and throughout the entire transit system because we just don't have enough resources out there. Commissioner Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see fare evasion on buses and subways, so I think it's pretty pervasive. It's kind of the thing to do these days to show your, But on the issue of the commuter rails fare not collected, is this a matter of conductors not getting to the whole train due to the rush hour crowds, or is something else at work on the commuter rails?
We had asked both Kathy and Phil, as well as Andy, to put together fare evasion programs, and they did that as part of, the fare increase and the passing of the budget. What I've done as chair of the Finance Committee, I've spoken to Commissioner Feinberg and Commissioners Law and Metzger and said, listen, I'm trying to avoid duplicating efforts by having agency presidents or their representatives duplicate the same information. So my attitude is if fare evasion and performance metrics for Metro North Long Island Railroad can be taken up at that committee, fare evasion and performance metrics can be taken up at New York City Transit and doesn't have to be delegated. So I think you can answer it, they're here, but I've tried to, in the effort of shortening our committee meetings, which go on too long as it is, I've tried to shorten them, but clearly you can get the information if you want it.
Good afternoon. So for the Long Island Railroad, just a quick, when we look at this issue, it's two issues. It's credit card fraud, individuals who basically commit identity theft at the machines primarily, and the railroads are left holding the bag when the legitimate cardholder, protests the charge. So on that front, we have two efforts. One we put in place already in May, which was we reduced the advanced sales date for monthly tickets from the 20th day of the month to the 25th day of the month. And what that did was it allowed people who are committing identity theft and purchasing large numbers of monthly tickets at our machines and then reselling them on eBay or other places 5 less days to do that. And it's remarkable, just in 2 months at the Long Island Railroad, our credit card fraud rate, chargeback rate has dropped by almost a half. So that's one positive thing. But the real change is about to take place, and both railroads are embarking on this. It's a joint effort to outfit our machines with credit debit chip readers, which will make it even more difficult going forward for these types of people to commit credit card fraud. That's the credit card side. I think you asked about on-board issues, and it's primarily our challenge is getting through the trains. I mean, whether the people who we don't get through the trains on are committing fraud or we just didn't get to the train, that's a different question. But our goal is to get through the trains, and we know from the audits that are done that there are certain trains and certain times of day that are challenging for us. So we have a team in our transportation department that's been aggressively looking at this for the past 6 months to try to make sure we have the right sizing crews in the right places, the problem areas. So year to date, just some numbers. So year to date, our fare not collected rate, which is the result of MTA audit observations, is 5.2%. That's down from 7.4% at this point last year. So we are seeing some results so far from this intense effort. The fare not collected rate is 17%. Incorrect fare collected rate is 17%, which is a little bit higher than 15.4 from last year. And that's mostly because we are struggling with addressing Atlantic Ticket. The customers, I think we had a brief on this last month, individuals still using Atlantic Ticket to Penn, which has kind of year to year created a new anomaly that we're working on to address with on-board procedures. So that's the Long Island Railroad results so far.
President Byford, did you want to say something?
No, I mean, just to give the committee assurance that the whole issue of fare evasion, you're absolutely right to flag it. We are addressing this extremely seriously. I mean, there is so much effort being put into this, in addition to other things like homeless, other quality of life indicators. But to set your mind at rest, Commissioner Jones, we absolutely are on the same page about not targeting demographics or individuals. We've made that very clear to NYPD. This is about just not even arresting people. We just want to provide a deterrent, and we want people to pay their fare because, as the chair rightly says, it's intolerable. It's unthinkable that we can even countenance letting $260 million walk away. So rest assured, we're all over this.
Commissioner Lanigan.
Yeah, so let me just try this one more time. To the extent that there is a projection of $260 million, I'd like to see the pieces that make up that $260 million. What are the elements? How much is turnstile jumping? How much is credit card fraud? And what are the elements? And I think with that, we are then armed to say where should resources be pointed. But I think it's very easy to give a number and then focus on one area which may or may not be the key contributor or only a partial contributor to it. So I think those numbers are critical.
I think those numbers are available and we'll put them together. Pat, did you want to add anything, since I know you're involved?
I was just going to say, and again, this goes to Commissioner Jones' comment, is that we really are not, and it goes to what President Byford just said, we are not focusing at all on any demographic at all. We are going to the stations where fare evasion is most prolific, and it's most prolific at those stations and buses that are busy, the busiest. And so that is where all that work is right now, and we are very focused on it. We will keep an eye on demographics just because we don't want to go awry, to your point, but it is really a big part of what we're trying not to do is focus or go the wrong way in that area.
About that. I just wanted to make a statement for Metro North. Very similar situation to Long Island, practically identical. We're doing the same thing with the Credit card fraud, same exact process. Our challenge is getting to the trains, and we are also in the process of doubling our spotting audit to create a larger enforcement process. That process is beginning with internal audit next month. So by probably 4 or 5 months from now, we'll have double the spotting tests to create a larger enforcement out there.
Can I just follow up on that, because my question was about the commuter rails. I have noticed, oh, sorry. Well, maybe it was a holiday or a holiday weekend or something, but Metro North has had ticket inspection at the gates of Grand Central Terminal before you even get onto your train. And that way you don't miss anybody as they're coming in. Is that an option for, I mean, Penn Station has multiple entrances to the Long Island concourse, so that's a problem. But Grand Central, pretty much, otherwise, there is one other, but the heart of the terminal is the likely entrance for most of the platforms.
It's usually done around just before holidays, Thanksgiving as well, and also at Yankee Stadium.
I won't prolong this. I don't want to make the meeting longer than it has to be. I would like to also factor in our expectations for the new fare collection system, which should have some immediate effect, particularly on buses. I at least have been anecdotally heard from many bus riders that they don't have stations to get Metro cards or their Metro card doesn't work. So I don't want to be too blanket in what's happening here. But also, obviously, the full impact of the half-price fare effort for low-income people won't kick in at best until the middle of next year, 2020. We're not even at 100,000 yet. October is the next big boost. So I would like to make sure that we have some estimate and calculation that these two systems may have an immediate impact or a longer-term impact on dropping these numbers to something a little more acceptable. So I don't want to put tons of effort into police and new things when actually part of this problem may be handled by certain of the things we already have in process. Thank you.
David Ross will now take the committee through the procurements for headquarters and the agencies.
Right, thank you, David. So for headquarters, there are 7 procurement actions totaling $549,934,252. 2 of them are non-competitive actions totaling $40,914,752. The first is a $20,914,752 award to J.P. Morgan Chase Bank for comprehensive banking services. This contract is the product of an RFP process that yielded just one proposal despite considerable efforts to engender competition. The second is a $20 million modification to a contract with Kronos to provide additional hardware, software, and consulting services needed to support MTA's expansion and full deployment of its on-time attendance system at MTA locations. I'll note that we brought a couple of actions to the board actually in May, one with Alex, one with a cabling company, and there are still other procurement actions that have either taken place or will take place, all to support the expansion and transformation of timekeeping systems MTA-wide.
David, is J.P. Morgan Chase the current incumbent that's providing these services?
They are, and we struggled. I'll offer, Commissioner. We spoke with I'd say all of the really large banks in the region and tried to get an understanding for why they didn't propose. I could speak to them if you'd like.
Can you just give a 60-second summary of why nobody else responded to the RFP?
Sure. So, yeah. So it's sort of a choose your bank thing. I mean, Fargo had concerns about using their armored trucks to make deposits at their cash vault, and they had an insufficient branch network to serve HQ and Long Island Railroad based on our description of needs and requirements. Bank of America outsourced their vault services, felt they couldn't be competitive, and they had problems with the way the cash deposits were handled. Citibank doesn't even support vault services and coin currency handling processing. I could go on with a sort of laundry list of additional reasons given by several of the other banks, but I'll say that I personally attended the proposal conference, and we struggled to have the banks tell us what we could do to change the RFP reasonably to serve our needs and still make it something that they could propose on, and the banks just didn't want to propose. So Chase has been doing it for a long time. They're already doing it, and it was just hard to get anybody else in.
Does anyone have any questions? Motion? Second? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
So additionally, headquarters has 5 competitive actions totaling $509,019,500. All 5 actions are category awards pursuant to an RFP seeking all agency maintenance, repair, and operating supplies. The proposed awardees are Fastenal Company for the electrical, industrial supplies, and security and safety categories. The combined not to exceed value of the 3 categories is about $398 million. Ozone Park Lumber is recommended for the plumbing category for the not to exceed amount of $24.9 million. And W.W. Granger is recommended to supply various maintenance, repair, and operating supplies and related products for an amount not to exceed $86.1 million. I'll note that these are 5 more categories. We had brought 4 other categories to previous board meetings. There are 2 more remaining to be awarded, but when we're done with this very large procurement, we will have done an all-agency procurement for all manner of maintenance and repair materials for all of the MTA agencies, including inventory and non-inventory materials. So it's been a big effort.
Any questions? Motion? Second? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, so for Metro North, there's 1 non-competitive procurement totaling $3.4 million. The proposed action modifies a contract with Dayton T. Brown Incorporated for laboratory services of positive train control, communication systems, and components.
Larry, I'm going to recuse myself from this. They either once were or could be a member of the Long Island Association, so I'll recuse myself.
Can I ask you and Susan a question? Did you guys approve any procurement items this morning on your? Okay. Yeah.
That one, and I recuse myself in that committee
You did.
meeting as well.
You took this one up. Okay. Were there any others?
Yes, there was not a procurement. I think there was a.
Okay. I just was curious about procurement.
A lease. I think it was a Metro North lease. There were no Long Island Railroad, no capital construction procurements.
Yeah, and we approved all of them. This is the one that's coming before finance. We also discussed some real estate, which will be approved here.
At some point, I'd like to talk to you and Kevin and Sarah about the whole procurement process and trying to understand why certain procurements go before certain committees and then some come to finance, and like, why don't they all come to finance? I'm not trying to take anything away from New York City Transit,
I think
right?
we would welcome the
But
discussion.
maybe it needs to go through multiple committees. No, so I just really want to understand the logic or the legal reasons why some go to some and not. It just doesn't. I asked this question once before, and it was like a non-answer, so I kind of gave up for the moment. So
There's a complex schedule that I don't understand either, but I do think we can simplify this and make it easier for everybody.
There's a whole series of criteria that we use to bring things to finance. Some of it has to do with dollars, some of it has to do with either dollars or percentage of a change order. Some of it just has to do with the fact that we believe that the committee, even if it doesn't meet any of the other financial criteria, would be of interest to this committee. So that's why we bring them to finance.
It goes before transit or the rail committees, it still comes before us.
Right, I can give you one specific example. If it's a very small dollar amount and it's positive train control, we're going to bring it to this committee, even if it doesn't meet any of the other criteria.
Yeah, David, I'm not, but see, this is where it gets confusing, because I just asked Commissioner Feinberg. All right, this is one of the places it gets confusing.
Sure.
So at New York City Transit Committee, we approved 17 procurement items. And when I look at, we're going to now approve, after we get through Long Island Railroad, we have 9 procurement items. So to me, 17 is one number, 9 is a different number.
Sure.
So are we approving a subset of what we approved earlier?
That's
And
exactly what-
so
yes.
and so again, my question is why isn't finance, approving all 17 procurement items? I don't want to belabor the length of this meeting because it's already been a long day and it's 10 after 2. That's why I just suggested that maybe a conversation with Commissioners Law and Metzger and Feinberg and maybe with you guys to have a talk about maybe we need to change, and anybody else who wants input, change kind of some of the rules and procedures about how we do this.
Yeah, we'll circulate the matrix in advance of that conversation.
Larry, I'm sorry to belabor this. Maybe do it the other way. If the committees are doing it, then why bring it to finance? Why not just bring it to the full board? Sorry, if the I'm belaboring it. Instead of doing it, the committees do it, and then it comes to finance, then it comes to the full board. Forget skipping the finance one. If each of the committees are doing it, then go straight to the board.
I don't necessarily have an issue with that. My only concern is that finance is finance. It's about
No, I
money and
understand.
spending
The
and
question
stuff
is,
like that.
Why is
So-
there a two-step? I think the question is, why is it two-step?
Well, that's why I want to
it.
sit and
Okay.
talk to everybody and see whether or not it should be one step or 2 steps and who should be doing what, because it just logically doesn't make sense right now.
Well, Larry, aren't we envisioning that procurement is going to be one of the activities that's going to be consolidated among all the agencies under the reorg plan? And why don't we let that unfold, and then we'll consolidate the steps
process.
to approve it?
That's a good point. Okay. All right, so where are we? With Long Island Railroad now? Or
I
we
think
still
we're
have to do
voting on the Metro North item.
Okay. So do I have a motion? Second? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, so next, for Long Island Railroad, there's an authorizing resolution seeking board approval to utilize a competitive RFP process to procure a design-build contract for the design, manufacture, testing, and delivery of train simulator systems for M7, M9 dual-mode locomotive and C3 fleets.
Any questions? Motion? Second? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
So New York City Transit has 9 procurement actions totaling $17,724,961. The first 3 items extend contracts for asbestos abatement and other environmental remediation services on an as-needed basis with ETS Contracting, PAL Environmental Services, and Pinnacle Environmental Corp. for 12 months and add an aggregate amount of $10 million. The fourth item provides for a 7-month contract extension and additional management services by HNTB New York Engineering for about $3.5 million. The additional services support unanticipated change orders associated with work on the Sea Beach line. The next 3 actions proposed total about $3.1 million and ratify awards to XL Elevator and Escalator, Slate Industries, and Boca Group East LLC to provide system-wide escalator safety checks and inspections. Based on a review that was part of the Subway Action Plan, New York City Transit immediately undertook system-wide escalator inspections using new means and methods developed in the review. It was necessary to onboard several contractors to ensure the work was comprehensive and progressed as quickly as possible. The 8th item proposed is a $1.2 million modification to a contract with TAP Electrical Contracting to strengthen an existing steel structure to support widened stairway and canopy on the southbound platform at the 8th Avenue station on the Sea Beach line in Brooklyn. And the last item for New York City Transit is an authorizing resolution to utilize a competitive RFP process for the purchase and delivery of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel.
Any questions? I'll make the motion then. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
So there are 3 actions for bridges and tunnels totaling $19,274,560. The first action proposed is a $15.1 million modification to a contract with Conduent State and Local Solutions to expand its customer service operations and back office systems to support the Central Business District tolling program. The next action is a $2.3 million modification to a contract with Amon and Whitney and WSP, a joint venture. to provide final design and construction support services for wind retrofits and miscellaneous structural repairs at the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge. The last action proposed by Bridges and Tunnels is a $1.9 million modification extending a contract with WSP-URS, a joint venture, to provide design services to address unforeseen field conditions associated with a restructuring of the upper and lower level toll plazas and southbound approach at the Henry Hudson Bridge.
Any questions? I'll make the motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
So there are no actions for FEMTEC. Excuse me, this concludes the procurements. Now to David Kelly.
The MTA consolidated financial and operational reports are on pages 72 to 125. Next is David Florio with the real estate items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 13 action items. 8 are travel convenience, customer-oriented retail locations at 4 Metro North and 4 Long Island railway stations. 2 are acquisitions in support of the capital program. 1 is a policy affecting pricing for events at Grand Central, and there are 2 covering East Side Access. I'm happy to go through them all, or on an exception basis answer any questions in the interest of time.
Does any committee members have any questions? If not, I'll make a motion to approve. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
There are 11 information items. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding those.
I don't think we need to act on those information items. So can I have I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All those in favor, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.